Conceptual learning you might have already gone through, isn't it? Right. So once you are aware of the concepts, now you start thinking of solving different problems, right? So unless I address the problems, unless I start of how to kickstart my problem solving skills, right? So I cannot, even if I learn the C, it's of no use. And most of you might have experienced it. Even though I know C, right? Most of the occasions I may not address the problems, isn't it? Right. So this happens to everyone, not only X, Y, Z, and it, right? It happens to everyone. So basically, the basic thing is we are supposed to have enough practice first, right? Though we understand the concept, unless we apply it, certainly we cannot do that, right? So it's all simply practice. And don't think the C as a subject, in fact. It's a matter of fact of CSC, especially CSC and IT students, the students who are from CSC and IT, certainly it is not at all, if you don't feel like a subject, we are addressing different problems of the society, right? And different problems that we can address. So how to provide the solutions for that? First of all, the basic thing is we don't need any, what you call, we should not have any intellectuality and all. It's mere common sense. Okay, so simply one should have enough common sense. If we address the problem, right, in mere common sense, then certainly we can do that. Okay, right. So anyway, because all the students are different years, right? I would like to go in brief, just 10 minutes of a introduction, then we'll go for the problem solving approach. Got it? Right? Okay, fine. So I repeat, 10 to 15 minutes of a concept, just I would like to review, right, what exactly the basic concepts required for problem solving. Got it? Right. So most of you are aware of the C language, like now. I think, is it visible? I think it is visible to you all. The board is visible. Okay, fine. Okay. So I hope the screen is visible to you. Right. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good. Right. Thank you. Thank you for the response. Right. Now see, basically when we start with the C, the basic things what we need to remember is the basic things like C is a case sensitive language. Got it? C is case sensitive language. It doesn't mean that generally we think that C case sensitivity means everything should be in lowercase. No, the C language itself is very much particular about the lowercase and uppercase alphabets. Okay, so it has discrimination in lowercase and uppercase letters. That's the fundamental thing. So unless and until it has got some that discrimination, right, it cannot move forward. Right. So the case sensitive language means it has clear discrimination between lowercase letters, lowercase alphabets, and uppercase alphabets. Got it? Right. Then the second point, simply what we need to just, I'm trying to recall you what we learned earlier. Okay. Right. So next one, C is a free form language, right? It's a free form language, right? What does it mean? Free form language. Now, what does it mean actually? Free form in the sense, already some of you might have gone through the Python language where you mention while writing the program, you are supposed to start, right, one letter here, from one letter here, then for a particular statement, you start beginning here. That means you are following proper notations, you are selecting particular columns the statement should begin actually, isn't it? Absolutely, very good. Indentation, perfect. So the default indentation, and that's what I'm expecting from you, right? Right. So the default indentation is there in the language called Python. Earlier we used to have, right, one particular language called COBOL, right? So earlier student used to learn COBOL where the indentation is also there, is mandatory there. But in case of C, C doesn't have such a proper mandatory indentation is not there. That means you need not to start a particular the sentence a particular column. You can start anywhere, right? You can end anywhere. Okay, that's a free form language. Then the most important part, right? C is a function dependent language, isn't it? Function dependent language, right? So it's full of functions, right? It has completely wrong, right? Simply it consists of, absolutely. So there are blocks, but it's not mandatory that in a particular column, suppose just try to understand. This is first column, second column, third column, fourth column, fifth column, fifth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10, right? You should not, it is not mandatory that you are supposed to begin your brace like this here only, right? Right? And next, the brace should not start here, should not start here like that. It doesn't have any specific format, in fact. So indentation is there, but it's of user choice. Okay, right? So somebody is mentioning the comment that, right? Absolutely, very good, right? So now the third one, function dependent language. Now again, as we are all know, right? The fundamental statements, everybody starts with the printf and the scanf statements. Now these two, what exactly? They are the functions. So C is a function, means a simple task. Assume that it's a simple task, right? So task based, right? Every task has got some input and certain output. So every task starts with a certain data and ends with a, right? Absolutely. So these printf and scanf, right, are assumed as a functions, right? So C is full of function dependent language. So most of the statements will be dependent on functions. Too many functions. They are called as library functions, as well as the user defined function. There are plenty of functions. Function means a task, simply, isn't it? Right. So there are plenty of functions. So C is a function dependent language. So case sensitive, free form, and function dependent language, right? Right. So these are basic things what we need to remember, right? Now, so as we are all aware of, one simple thing like, right, writing a program, in fact, right? If at all you want to write programs, so means you are supposed to learn a language. Whenever you start learning a language, you are supposed to understand the jargon of the language first of all, isn't it? Unless you understand the jargon, you cannot, right, learn the language. So jargon means, right, in case of like for example, like English, you are supposed to learn articles, prepositions, nouns, pronouns, like that. Okay, the way of the different right, parts of speech. They are called as parts of speech. Absolutely. Similarly, like this, language has got some jargon, right? That jargon we call it as C tokens. The jargon is called as C tokens, right? Jargon means, right, the terminology. Jargon means the terminology, right? Regularly, what are the frequently used words that we use? Okay, that's called terminology. So as a part of that, we'll start learning with the alphabets, right? So C tokens, right? As a part of C tokens, we have different things. So in general, we begin with the alphabets, isn't it? First, we learn the alphabets for any language. That's called C character set. Now tell me, by the way, how many characters are there? What is this character set means? The number of characters that is being represented or identified by the language. Okay, right. So the number of characters that can be represented by the language. So system can see through C, you can represent at most 256 different characters. Okay, C can recognize, right? Absolutely, right. That is always, you might have gone through the ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange, right? So as per the ASCII standard, there are 256 characters can be represented by the C language. 0 to 255, that is the numbering, ASCII values they are talking about. So all the 256 characters are given numbers, like your names along with your roll numbers. Okay, right. So roll number and names, like that you have, right? Every other character will be having a set of right, sequence of numbers. Like in your class 1 to 60, there will be numbering. Though the students have names, everybody will be represented by means of their numbers. Absolutely, all the 256 characters are given numbers from 0 to 255. Okay, so these numbers are given through ASCII, American Standard Code for Information Interchange, right? So why exactly it is 256 only, right? Why not it is 300? Why not it is 400? It is again based on the size of the character of the language. In C language, right? So most of you might have known that in C, the size of a character. Tell me, what is the size of a character data? How much space it occupies? It occupies 1 byte, isn't it? Isn't it? Absolutely. Very good. Very good response. Good response. 1 byte. Now, 1 byte means how many bits? 1 byte means 8 bits. Very good. Right. Now, 2 power 8 is the value. Okay. 2 power 8 is the value. So 2 power 8 means that is 256. So 256 different combinations of characters will be representing. Absolutely. That depends on the compiler. And C is completely based on, right, the 16-bit operating system earlier. Okay. So now, so most of the languages they use, right, the size of the character in all the advanced languages, it is of 2 bytes, isn't it? 2 bytes. So earlier, it is of only 16-bit character data, 16-bit computers, 1 byte of space being occupied by the character, and that 1 byte occupies 8 bits. It means that 2 power 8 different character system can recognize. Okay, nowadays, the size of the character is 2 bytes. Now, in Java, right, all the advanced languages, the size of the character is 2 bytes. Now imagine how many characters the system can recognize, right? So 2 power 16. 2 power 16. It means that 65,536. Okay, got it. In case of C, I repeat, in case of C, as the character size is 1 byte only, right? Sorry. As the character size is 1 byte only, the system can recognize 256 characters only. That's the only reason why earlier computers used to understand English alphabets only. Okay, later on, all the advanced languages, they start understanding all the other language characters also. Reason being, the size of the character has been raised to 2 bytes. As the size of the character raised to 2 bytes, obviously 16 bits, 16 bytes in the sense 2 power 16, 2 power 16 in the sense 265,536. So obviously, every language can be recognized by the system. That's the reason why the regional language, the keyboards are being implemented in the regional languages also. Okay, earlier that was not the case, right? Absolutely. Okay, fine. So this is the basic reason behind this. So you start alphabets. How many alphabets? Already 256 only, right? Now coming to our C part. Right now we are talking about C. So the system according to C, it can recognize 256 characters only, out of which, right, as we know, English alphabets, how many? 26, right? That too, capital and small. Okay, 26, 26. How many? 52. Okay, then digits, that is 0 to 9, total 10. Okay, so 52 plus 10, right? So total 62, right? Out of 256, 62 alphabets and digits. Rest of the 194 are the special symbols like operators, hash, right? Plus, minus, and all the different other characters that we can recognize, that we can represent. Okay, so totally, as we are aware of the things, a total of, right, 256, out of which alphabets are the basic thing. This is called C character set. Okay, this is called the C character set, right? C character set. Okay, alphabets, this is 52. Okay, digits, right? This is 0 to 9. This is 10. Okay, and symbols, various symbols, right? There's a 194 different symbols. So total of 256 characters system can recognize. Okay, right. Now for this, how the for all these alphabets and digits and symbols, the numbering is given from 0 to, as somebody is already mentioned, okay, 0 to 255. Absolutely, that is true. Right? These numbers are given for all the alphabets, for capital A to Z, for small a to Z, and for 0 to 9. Okay. Now for a capital A to Z, it is from 65 to 90. Right? And for small a to Z, it is 97 to 122. Right? And for 0 to 9, this is 48 to 57. These are the ASCII values. The range of ASCII values. How zero in between 0 to 255, the capital A is represented with the ASCII value 65. Right? Small capital B is 66. Capital C with 67. Like that it goes. Got it? Right? So these are the ranges. So once we understand this, so this is the only reason why the system can recognize. Okay. So when you press a letter called A, when you press a letter called A, right, that will be automatically converted into ASCII value. And this ASCII value will in turn get converted into binary. Simply like as we all know, and if I press A, 65 will be generated. That 65 will be converted into binary, right? 32, right? One remainder, right? 2 16s, 0 remainder, 2 8s, 0 remainder, 2 4s, again 0 remainder, right? So this the numbers will keep on continuing. So here you are getting the reminders in binary. So automatically, so from ASCII character to ASCII value, from there, ASCII, the binary will be created. Got it? I think you understand. Right. So these are the character sets and the corresponding ASCII values. So it is mandatory to understand the ASCII values basically. Okay. Right. Now coming to the point. Right. Coming to the point. Okay, fine. So am I audible? Is that clear? Guys, yes, very good. Okay, fine, fine. Are you following?
Yes, sir.
Are you following?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Fine. Okay, fine. Right. So first we start with the C character set. Later on, as I said, we begin with the C tokens. Once for any language, once we'll understand the alphabet, then we start thinking of the jargon. Okay, the parts of the speech. Similarly, here we see tokens. So the C tokens, what we know, right, are first basically literals, then identifiers, okay, then variables, then constants, isn't it? Right? Then data types, then keywords. Okay, is that clear? Am I clear? Right. Then operators. Okay, so literals, identifiers, variables, constants, data types, keywords, and operators. Okay, these are the generally used, what you call, C tokens. Right. What is a literal? Let us see just one by one. Hardly I take 5 more minutes, right, for this to finish. Okay, so just I'm trying to recall you what exactly we learned already. Okay, right. Slowly we are getting into the language. Right. The first one, literals. Now tell me, what is a literal here? Literals means simply, if I say, now tell me what is 75.4? What is 22? Okay, what is the basic difference here? What is the basic difference we have? So we feel that those two are numbers, literals, isn't it? Right, absolutely, float and integer only. Before that, what exactly we understand, we are aware of C, right? We are able to tell that this is floating point value, this is integer. But otherwise, what people think that they are simply values. Okay, what exactly they convey, right? So now again, I try to pose one simple question. What is data and what is information? What is data and what is information? Both are same or both are different? Data and information. Both are same or different? Absolutely different, 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 different. Right, absolutely different. Now tell me what is data here? Here, right, 75.4 and 22 are the data. Okay, right. No, right. I tell you, right. Very good, right. Absolutely, information is processed data. Perfect, right. So here, when I say 75.4 and 22, these two are the data, raw data or literals. They are called as literals. As per computer science is concerned, they are called as literals. In our C, we call them as literals. Raw facts, absolutely, right. Absolutely, right. Now what I do is I just convert them into different. Age is equal to 22. Weight is equal to 74. Okay, 75.4. Weight is equal to 75.4. Age is equal to 22. Okay, is that clear? Right. Now this becomes information. This becomes information, right? You are converting the 75.4 into the weight, right? 22 into age. So you are giving some information, right? So this raw data has been collected, converted into information. So it means that now data means, now we can assume that, we can define that data means collection of, somebody already posted that, very good. So collection of raw facts. So values like this is called data. Okay, now when you process this data, that becomes information. So any processed data will result in information. Any processed data will result in information. So you have converted raw data into information by assigning a word called weight. Weight is equal to 75.4. Age is equal to 22. Now tell me what is this weight and age? What is this weight and what is this age? Right? They are the identifiers. As I mentioned, the second one in C tokens, right? As I mentioned, the second one, this is called identifier basically. Okay, they are called identifiers, right? I tell you again, right? So here I give you another example, like now tell me date of birth is equal to, right, 22nd, suppose. Okay, day, right? So the day is 22nd. On 22nd, suppose somebody's birthday. Okay, day is equal to 22, right? Now weight is equal to 75.4, right? Now tell me, otherwise 75 only, suppose. Now tell me what is the fundamental difference between these two? Here 22 and 75 are the data, literals. Weight, day and weight are the identifiers. Okay, but there is a small difference here, right? The day of your birth will never ever change, but your weight may vary before lockdown and after lockdown. Certainly everybody's weight will vary, right? They keeps on changing. Now tell me, right, weight is a variable. Weight is basically an identifier which is a variable. Day is a constant. Got it? Is a constant. Okay, now tell me, what is day and weight? They are basically identifiers. Okay, an identifier whose value doesn't change, date of birth doesn't change, but your weight will change. It is keep on changing every day and every month and every year, isn't it? Right. So the day will never change, but the weight will keep on changing. Something, the identifier whose value remains unchanged. Identifier whose value remains unchanged is a constant. Right? An identifier whose value keeps on changing is a variable. Okay. So identifier means, again I tell you in some other words, identifier means data name, the name assigned to the data. Okay, any name assigned to the data. Now, so this identifier or data is called identifier or data name. The identifier can be a constant, the identifier can be a variable. Okay, in general, For both constants and variables, we call them as variables only. But to be more precise, to be more clear, right? Constants and variables are different. Vary, which can vary, whose value may be changed. Okay, right. So weight keeps on changing. Date of birth doesn't change. Age keeps on changing, right? The dates will keep on changing, right? Right. Your texture, right, keeps on changing. Right. That's it. I think you got it. Very good. Fine. So now we have cleared literals. Now we are able to understand what is a literal, what is an identifier, what is a variable, okay, what is a constant, right? Now coming to the point of data types. We are all aware of these data types, right? Now what is a data type? So it tells about, a data type tells about the behavior of the variable. Okay, the behavior of the variable or the type of the variable, in fact. Okay, what kind of type? So it resembles the basic three things basically. Okay, the size and type and range. Regarding data types, regarding data types, three things we are supposed to remember. One is the type of the data, the size of the data, and the third one is the range of the data. Okay, right. So size, range. Now, these are all the things what you people are already aware of. Okay, right. Now coming to the point of the data types only, we have basically try to understand. Data types comes from the basic things, numbers and alphabets. Data can be a number, data can be an alphabet, isn't it? Data can be a number, data can be an alphabet, right? So single letter alphabet. This is multiple letter alphabets. So data means multiple letters, single letter, like gender. You mentioned one single letter, male or female, one single letter, right? So multiple, what is your name? What is your course? This is BTech, some Ravi. Okay, this is multiple letters. Okay, so alpha data can be single letter data or multiple letters data. Now numbers can be, again, right, as you said, as somebody has mentioned already, right, integers and float, right? Now this integers has got again short integers and long integers. Okay, right? Float has got one format and the other format is double. Okay, and the other format is long double, based on the magnitude of the data. So why do we have this many classifications in integers only? There will be small integers, there will be normal integers, there will be long integers. How can we discriminate that small, long and all? Absolutely, right. So once we got the kind of data, once we understand the size of the magnitude of the data, now tell me, I tell you one simple reason. So short int and long int. So how many of you can add two numbers, can write a program for addition of two numbers? It's pretty easy, addition of two numbers, isn't it? Right? But it seems to be, you might have think, sir, what sir is asking about addition of two numbers, everybody knows. Now tell me, right, can you add 5 plus 4? It's pretty easy. Can you add? Now can we add? Now can we add? Now add these two. Add these two. It's very difficult, isn't it? It takes time, isn't it? Right? What is happening here? Just addition of two numbers only, na? No, there's a lot of difference, isn't it? Why it is right? Absolutely range. Earlier, if I say 5 plus 7 is pretty easy. 55 plus 77 is again easy, right? 555 plus 777 is also easy. But what is happening here? Slowly the magnitude is increasing. Absolutely. As the magnitude is increasing, the number of digits is increasing, right? So the size of the data will change. That is what the range I'm talking about. Okay. So every data type, why it is mentioned its size, why it is mentioned its range. This is what the difference. So this is integer. This is also integer, a number without fractions, right? This is also a number without fractions, but very difficult to add, isn't it? Right? Because the range will vary. Range will vary. So for that matter, we are supposed to take, right, all types of data, and if the magnitude increases, when the space will be increased, the size will be increased. So based on the type of the data, we select the type of the data type. Okay, right. So that's what already you might have thought of. Okay, right. So this is again, now how the size is, I tell you one simple tip, right? In case of short integer, in case of, I give 2-3 examples for that matter and I clear, right? Short int, it occupies 1 byte, isn't it? Data type. This is the size. Now tell me what is the range. How do we calculate the range? Now the range, again I tell you earlier, right? I take total 8 bits, isn't it? There will be 8-bit positions. 1 byte means 8-bit positions. In all the 8-bit positions, in memory it occupies 8 bits. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, now this is the sign bit. Right. This is absolutely, somebody has already mentioned that signed and unsigned. Absolutely, that's where I'm coming for. So there will be a sign bit. That means whether the number can be negative or positive. Okay, we talk about that negative and positive based on the sign bit. Okay, this sign bit will always tell you whether the number is positive or negative. Okay, the rest of the, I tell you, try to understand this concept. Okay, the rest of the 7 bits, rest of the 7-bit positions, right, will actually occupy your space for the data. Okay, now rest of the 7 bits means, right? So here the sign bit and a plus or minus, that means sign bit means plus or minus, whether the number is positive or negative. Okay, now rest of the 7 bits means 2 power 7, 2 power 7. So obviously, right, from minus 2 power 7 to 2 power 7 minus 1. This is the range. So obviously it is minus 128 only. 2 power 7 means minus 128. Right? No. Minus 128 to 127. Okay. It includes 0 also. It includes 0 also. Right. So minus 2 power 7 to 2 power 7 minus 1 is the range. Now, for that matter, you can tell the size of any data type altogether. In case of int, it occupies 2 bytes. Now tell me, 2 bytes means 16 bits. Out of 16 bits, 1 bit is sign bit. Okay, rest of the bits, 15 bits, right? Right. That means, again, this is minus 2 power 15 to 2 power 15 minus 1. This is how we calculate. Absolutely. 2 power 15 means 32,768 only. Okay, right. So in case of long int, again, now in this case, remembering the range is very difficult. Okay, it's very difficult because it occupies 4 bytes. 4 bytes means 32 bits. 32 bits means 1 bit sign bit. So minus 2 power 31 to 2 power 31 minus 1. That's how it goes. Right? So 2 power 31 is very difficult to remember the value, isn't it? So it is easy to remember, it's easy to understand how what the range is, how the range is being calculated. Right? Minus 120, how the minus 128 has come, how the 32,768 has come. Right? That has come from the size only. Absolutely. Right? So minus 2 power 7 to 2 power 7 minus 1. Right? So in that way, you can keep on calculating the ranges of every other character. Now somebody has told that, sir, if at all I don't want to use any sign bit, right? I want to include the sign bit also. Like somebody is, I give you one simple example, like signed and unsigned recording. Now you have a car, suppose. Okay, nobody in your family, totally 5 members are there. Totally 5 members are there, right? But all the 5, nobody knows car driving. then you have chosen a car driver to go somewhere, right? Now, including the car driver, total 6 members are there where you cannot accommodate. So at most 5 members you can accommodate in the car, isn't it? So now what you do is, if at all, now you try to avoid the driver. Okay, now any one of 5 of you knows the driving, then you start driving. So total 5, with 5 members, all the 5 members can accommodate in the car. Okay, so you cannot go for another car because 1 member is extra, so you cannot afford one more car, isn't it? So what we do is, we certainly try to accommodate the data within the memory only. So within the memory, how can we accommodate? This is what, right? So in case of unsigned short int, that's why we avoid that signed bit. When I say unsigned short int, right? So in that case, there is no signed bit. So signed bit will also be considered as a data. So complete 8 bits will be used for data. Okay, so not 7 bits. So total 8 bits will be used. Obviously, right? Positive number, no negative numbers there, only positive numbers. Positive numbers begins from 0 to 255. Okay, 2 power 8 minus 1. So in that case, 0 to 2 power 8 minus 1. Got it? Only positive, absolutely, right? Only positive numbers. So 0 to, it starts from 0 to 2. Okay, right? Signed means negative values also, right? No. I'm telling you the same, right? This, in case of a short, in case of normal integers, you cannot accommodate. If I say short int, it cannot accommodate. If I say int, it can accommodate. But here it occupies 2 bytes. Instead of 2 bytes, I want to accommodate this 130 within 1 byte. Got it? So for that matter, what I do is I can declare this as unsigned short int. I declare this as a unsigned short int. When I say this unsigned short int, obviously, right, you can accommodate entire data in 1 byte only. So you don't need extra space. So if at all one wants to avoid, right, negative numbers, when somebody feels that there is no negative numbers in their data, then they simply go for unsigned short int. Okay, signed and unsigned, for that matter, they try to give you right, the positive and negative values only. Okay, so in that sense, you are supposed to calculate all the data types and their ranges. Okay, then so literals are over. Literals, identifiers, variables, constants, data types. Okay, are over. Now coming to the point of keywords. Okay, keywords means an English word. Simply, see, words are nothing but they're in English words. In English, there are plenty of words. Okay, right. So here, right, that's where I'm telling you, we are not focusing on the size of the data. That's the problem. We don't bother about short int and sign int. Now nowadays memory has become very much cheaper right now. Okay, when memory is cheaper, right, obviously, right, somebody is saying the same. Well, why are you simply using integers only every time? The reason is, we don't bother about memory. When you want to optimize your program, then you bother about your memory. Okay, when you want to write best programs, then you start thinking of less memory, right? Now for first years, I'm telling you, for all the first years, I'm telling you, right, there are the programs. Writing programs is one way, writing best programs is another way. Okay, the best way of writing programs will certainly help you in a different angle. Okay, for that matter, you talked about memory, so reducing the memory and all. Okay, right. Coming to the keywords. Now, every language has got different words to use. Okay, but C uses only 32 English words. 32 English words. Okay, 32 English words only. It uses 32 English words, except that no other word. Except that there is no other word. Hardly, if we understand all the meaning of each usage of every other keyword, C is over. In fact, conceptually C is over. Okay, if I understand the meaning of every other keyword, all 32, there ends the matter. My job is done. Okay, so it seems that I understand everything. Okay, right. Now, so 32 English words. These 32 English words are called as keywords. Okay, so what are they? Like integer, short, do, while, for, like that. Okay, these are all the words, right? These are all the words, right? So that can be used as a keywords. Okay, so there's nothing specific to this in discussing keywords, right? Next one, the operators, right? So operators is an ocean, right? Right. Simply there are, as we are aware of, there are unary operators and binary operators and ternary operators. That's it. Okay. Plus, minus, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, right? Less than, greater than. These are all different operators, isn't it? Right now, I'm not going into those details, right? Okay. So basically, the operators, an operator, what is the definition? An operator is a symbol which performs. An operator is a symbol which performs an operation over one or more operands. That's it. Okay, right? An operator is a symbol which performs an operation over one or more operands. That's it. Simple. Okay, so plus A plus B. An operator is a symbol which performs an operation over these two operands. A and B are the operands. Operand. Okay, these two are the operands. This is the operator. That's it. So, like plus, there are plenty of operators are there. Okay, right. We can conclude this operators. We'll discuss somewhere, right? Some other time. Okay, straight away. Now, these are the basic things so far. C tokens. Now we have covered the. See, I'm going in such a way that what are the basic things we need to remember while going for addressing a problem. Okay, so we understand the character set, we understand various C tokens. Now coming to the program part. Now what is a program here? Tell me, what is a program? A program is a right. So we'll discuss some other time, right? I'll give you in last for having some question and answer session, right? At that time I answer, right? So meanwhile we'll continue the session. Okay, so there are plenty of operators are there, right? Coming to the point, very good. A program is a set of instructions for what? A program is a set of instructions to solve a particular problem. Okay, and that too, I'll give you one more clear definition. A sequence of instructions. Got it? A sequence of instructions to solve a particular problem. Got it? A sequence of instructions to solve. A sequence is the most important. Most important word here is sequence. A sequence of instructions to solve a particular problem. The sequence doesn't change, should not change, isn't it? Okay, the sequence should not change always. So there will be plenty of set of instructions only, but that set of instructions need to be there in a sequence. So unless a sequence is there, right, there won't be any meaning for the program. Got it? So certainly there should be a sequence. Please mind this, most essential part, especially for first years I'm telling you. Okay, remember that a program is a sequence of instructions, because the sequence is most important. Suppose, right, in our brain, right, when you are going for a drive, when you're going for a ride, okay, you start driving your car or start driving your vehicle. Okay, now there is a sequence of instructions being you follow, right, from your brain to drive the car or to drive the vehicle, right? So do you change any particular sequence of operations during the drive? No. Okay, where to play clutch, where to brake, where to go for accelerator, right? These are all the things you automatically do after a sequence, isn't it? Absolutely. This is there should be a sequence. Okay, otherwise you met with an accident. If the sequence changes in the like driving is a program. So whenever somebody is driving, the program driving is going on in your brain. Okay, the driving program is in execution. Okay, so the driving program, the sequence of instructions are going on. They are very important, right? If the driving changes, right, automatically if the sequence changes, you met with an accident, isn't it? Because where to ఎక్కడైతే క్లచ్ వేయాలో అండ్ ఎక్కడ బ్రేక్ వేయాలో there you go for right accelerator, right? ఎక్కడైతే accelerator చేయాలో there you brake, right? If the sequence changes, right, you met with an accident. Similarly, your program also stops working, right, if there is no sequence. Okay, right? So I'm not going to the details of your total, right, structure of a C program. Okay, right? Even automatic cars also, absolutely, there will be a program for that. In fact, see, nothing works without a program. Okay, nothing works without a program. Nothing works without a program, without a sequence. Okay, there will be a sequence of instructions, even in the self-balanced cars also. Okay, everywhere there will be a sequence. Okay, that's yeah, absolutely, very good point. Automatic cars, absolutely right. So everywhere, if it is automatic car or it's or manual driving, everywhere there'll be a sequence of program instructions will be keep on executing. Okay, right. Now I'm not going into the structure of your C program, because already you are all aware of C program structure. I would like to give you some confidence first. Okay, so as a part of that confidence, what I'm telling you is, right, generally a program, most of the students think that a program can have 10 statements, a program can have 20 statements or 25 statements or 30 statements. Hardly. Okay, so don't never ever try to count the number of lines. Once you understand the program, even if it is of 1,000 lines, you don't fear. Most of the students fear of writing programs. Okay, the reason being they try to remember the sequence of steps. Okay, don't try that. Okay, don't try that. What you're supposed to do is try to understand the sequence. If you understand the sequence, then it will be easy for you. Okay, so how do you understand the sequence? Right, the sequence is simply you are supposed to understand the types of statements. Right. Okay, right. Now, so in order to understand the number of lines, if somebody simply worry about if they see the more than 30, 50, 100 lines of code, automatically they fear of right coding. So this many lines, how could I write like that? Okay, no, it doesn't happen actually. If you understand with common sense, nothing is there. In fact, there are simply, I tell you, you try to understand the program in terms of instructions. Okay, now, so a statement in a program, in general, you begin with your int main. Okay, these are all instructions, isn't it? Right? Now, the statement 1, statement 2, statement 3, 4, 5, 6, isn't it? There are 6 statements in the program. Every line, in general, what we think is every line is a statement. Now tell me how many types of statements are there? Okay, right. But that's it. So understanding logic is one aspect. Understanding the syntax is another aspect, right? Right. So understanding the language is nothing but syntax. Understanding the problem is nothing but logic. Got it? So if you take a problem, if you understand the problem, there your logic works. Okay. If you understand the language, you understand that there is a syntax. Okay. Right. Okay. Now coming to the point. Yeah. Coming to that, we'll go one by one. Now, these are all the instructions. Suppose now this each one is an instruction. Each one is an instruction. Now try to understand how many types of instructions are there. There may be 1,000 lines of code in a program. There may be 10,000 lines of code in a program. Everything, all the lines fall in a specific set of category. Okay, see that category. Okay, the types of statements. I'm talking about the types of statement. Please remember this. Then certainly you understand everything. Types of statements. How many types of statements are there in C? That's where we begin with. Okay, right. So types of statements here. The first one, very first statement, right? Input and output statements, isn't it? We're all aware of it. input output statements, first one. Then declarative statements. Okay, declarative statements. I'm talking about all the categories of types of statements in C. Hardly. Okay, right. Third one. Once the declaration is over, right? So input, output statement, declarative statements. Then the third one, expressions. In a program, statement ante వీటిలో ఏదో ఒకటి ఉంటుంది అంతే, ఇంకే వేరే ఏమి ఉండదు. Okay, every statement falls in any one of these categories. All these statements, there may be 1,000 or 10,000 lines. I repeatedly telling the same. There may be 10,000 lines of code in the program. All the 10,000 lines statements fall in any one of these categories. Okay, fine. Fourth one. So input output, declarative statements, expressions, then control statements. Control statements, right? Control statements. This has got a different category altogether. We'll discuss, right? Fifth one, right? So control statements, then branching statements. Okay, input output statements, declarative statements, expressions, control statements, and branching statements. Yeah. Perfect. Right. Okay, fine. I understand. Right. So you're all following. I understand. Right. Very good. Right. Good comments. Right. So there are 5 different types of statements. Input, output. I repeatedly tell you. Input, output statements, declarative statements, expressions, control statements, branching statements. Okay. So almost almost every other line fall any one of these categories, right? Okay, right. And I tell you, just we focus on fourth one. Okay, we focus more on fourth one. Okay, right. Coming to the point, in a program, I write a small program here, right? Here, int a comma b. Okay, then printf, enter a comma b, scanf, %d, ampersand a and ampersand b. Okay, then c is equal to, I said straight away, c, I take another variable called c is equal to a plus b, then followed by printf %d c. Now tell me, okay, now see this program, right? You see this program. This program consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines of code. Now, the first statement, okay, int a comma b comma c, right? Okay, now int a comma b comma c, right? This is the declarative statement. Absolutely, declaration, very good. This is a declarative statement. So in every program there will be declaration statements or not? Absolutely, we are aware of it, right? Then, right, these declarative, what for these declarative statements? These declarative statements are meant for, right, meant for telling the compiler that what are all the different types of data members that we are using in the program. Okay, here in my program I am using a, b, c or 3 different integers I am using in this program. That's what we are trying to convey to the system. Okay, right. Okay, then these two are the printf and scanf are the initialization, as somebody is mentioning. Absolutely, printf and scanf are the input output statements. Okay, input and output statements. Absolutely, very good. So this, the first one is the declarative statement, the second 2 are the input output statements, and the third one, c is equal to a plus b, is an expression. So calculation part, every other calculative statement, every calculation part comes under expression. Got it? Okay, fine. Now again the fourth one, printf, again this is another input output statement. Got it? That's it. So most of the occasions in a program there will be input statements, right, and the expressions, and finally the output. So that is called IPO cycle. In fact, to be more specific, we call it as, right? We call it as IPO cycle: input, process, output. Okay, so input, process, and output. Input, that will be processed, and you get the output. That's it. So the sequence of instructions will be first input, then the process statement, then the output statement. So in every program, you have the same set of statements. Try to understand the same, right? You have the declarative statements first. You write the declarative statements first. Okay, then input output statements, input specifically. You mention the input statements. Okay, first declarative, then input statements, then expressions along with the right. So this is most essential part, in fact. And finally, an output statement. You close the program, isn't it? Now this process, here in this process, as I said again, I tell you, input, process, and output. Okay, in this process, all expressions, control statements, and branching statements. 3, 4, 5. 3, 4, 5. These three come under process. Come under process. I repeat, every program consists of input statements, process statements, then the output statements, isn't it? Right. So input statements, already we are aware of it. We declarative and input statements in the first part. Then output part, there will be printf again. Okay. Right. In between the process part consists of, tell me what are they? Expressions, control statements, and branching statements. Is that clear? Right. So entire program, whether it is 2 lines or 3 lines of code, or it is 10,000 lines of code, all of them consists of statements. Okay, these 5 statements, they fall under the category. And you may be thinking of, sir, what about the statements before the main, the global variable declaration, and what you call the function declaration, and hash include statements? Okay, they are the different types of statements. But as a part of program, your program execution always begins from main. Okay, right. Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'm coming to that. The branching and control statements. Right, perfect. That. So coming to the point. They come under the process part. Okay, the process part. Here in the process part, right, expressions, control statements, and branching statements will come. Okay, now let us come to the point of discussion. Today's point of discussion, right, is control statements. Control statement. Okay, this is most important for us. Okay, by the name itself, we can understand control statement, a statement which controls the execution of another statement. That's it. I repeat, a statement which controls the execution of another statement. Okay, or set of statements. Generally, what happens? One statement is independent of other statements. In a program, one statement is independent of other statements. But what happens is, right, sometimes when we want to implement some logic, okay, then we think of trying to manipulate the statements. We try to manipulate the statements, right? So I repeat, that a statement which controls the execution of other statements, to be more specific. Okay, a statement which controls the execution of other statements, right, is a control statement. Okay, like among your friends, entire gang, isn't it? Right. So there will be one student who controls the who influences every other student. Right. Okay. Fine. So like that. So all the statements are independent statements in a program, in a C program. All the statements are independent statements except control and branching. Okay. Right. Except control and branching. Right. Control statements and branching statements. These two statements are simply, right, meant for controlling the program execution. Right. Now, in this, we have the decision control statements. Already somebody is quoting that same. Sir, what about decision control statement? Absolutely, I'm talking about the same. So decision control statements and looping control statements. The decision control statements are two different types. Okay, right? They are decision control and looping control statements. Control statements are two different kinds. Decision control and looping control. Okay. In some other way, we call them in different ways. Decision control, selection control, right? And iterative control statements. All the same, all the same. In other way, or we call it as number one, decision control. Decision control. Number two, selection control. Number three, iterative control statements. Iterative control. Okay. So everybody have their own type of category, and that's it. So do category. Okay. So if somebody says that the control statements are two different types, decision control and looping control, or decision control, selection control, or iterative control. Right. Okay. Now I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. Right. Now I'm talking about the decision control statements. Okay. The decision control statements, by the name itself, you can understand we make decisions. Yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. Every time, yes or no means true or false. Yes or no, true or false, 1 or 0. That's it. Okay. So entire decision control is based on this decision. In every daily life, see, decision control is not a different statements actually. It's not, they're not different statements. They simply, in a daily life, we also do the same. Whether we want to attend the college or not, whether we watch a movie or not, okay, whether we have lunch or not, whether we have dinner or not, whether we have, right, we can talk to friend or not. So we keep on thinking actually, right? We keep on thinking and we make decisions. So the same decision control statements, right? We always tell yes or no, true or false, 1 and 0. Try to understand the decision control statements are based on this. Nothing more than that. Okay. Now, what are those decision control statements? Right. Right. Already somebody mentioned that. Simple if, compound if. Okay. If else. Very good. If else. Else if ladder. Okay. Then nested if. And finally, last but not least, switch. Switch. Okay. So simple if, compound if else if ladder, nested if, and switch. These are the categories of decision control statements. Okay. In a program, right, we make decisions, right, in order to solve a particular problem, right? So the decision control will simply based on simple if, compound if else if ladder, nested if, and switch. Okay. So there seems to be many, but they're all simple, very simple to understand. Okay, right? If at all, right? If uses only one simple condition. Okay, and it controls only one statement. Okay, if a statement controls only one statement, that is simple if. If a statement controls more than one statement, that is compound if. Got it? I repeat. If a statement controls only one statement controls another statement, that's it. Then it is decision control. If one statement controls multiple statements, then that is compound if. Okay, right? So if one statement controls one statement controls the execution of one statement, that is simple if. If one statement controls multiple statements, then that is compound if. Okay, right. I give you one simple example for everything. Then we directly move on to the second one, looping control, where we need to focus more on maximum problem solving. Okay, right. So if certain condition, okay, if certain condition, right, then I execute a statement called X. Okay, if this is true, then statement X will be executed. If not, nothing. Okay, now the validity of this statement is based on this. Okay, right? I give you one simple example. Like when you go to a shopping mall, okay, there will be 75% discount. Okay, in small letters it will be mentioned like conditions apply, isn't it? Isn't it? Right. So 75% discount, right? Conditions apply. Now this conditions apply will be very small, but the 75% will be mentioned in a bigger way, isn't it? But that 75% is valid based on the conditions apply. Now, which one is bigger? Actually, the conditions itself. The conditions is controlling the 75%. Okay, so even if the 75% is a big small letters, okay, so it cannot. Right. Okay, let's go one by one. Now, what I do is, in case of simple if, I mention if age is greater than or equal to 18, then printf, okay, can be a voter. Can be a voter. That's it. I print. Okay. If this is the statement, if the age of a person is greater than or equal to 18, then printf can be a voter. Now he can be a voter only if see directly see the statement. Printf can be a voter. Okay. This is valid only when the age is greater than or equal to 18. That's it. So now this statement is valid only when right. That's okay. Right. Now, in case of the other thing, like I write a statement like if a greater than 10, okay, a greater than 10, I want to increment the value of b5 by 5, c by 10, d by 100. Okay, if this is the true, if a greater than 10 is valid, then I want to do all these things. When you have more than one statement, then put braces. Okay, so when you want to control multiple statements, a bunch of statements, then put braces. When you put the braces, it means that this is a block of statements and a bunch of statements. Okay, okay, it's a bunch of statements. We call it as a bunch of statements, right? Right, bunch of statement or a block of statements. Right, if a greater than 10, then 1 2 3, so more than one statement are valid. Okay, this entire block will be executed only when a is greater than 10. So please remember always, most of the students get confused in case of this. So if this is what the condition actually. And please remember, and one more valid point I would like to share with you is here in case of if, right, this is called the a greater than b is a condition, in fact. Okay, right? Sometimes, now tell me, what does it mean? What does it mean? Is it a condition? What is this actually? What is the difference between these two statements? What is the difference between these two statements? This is a condition. This is an expression. Yeah, increment by 1 only. But the point is, this is an expression. This is a condition. Okay. So the if statement can be manipulated by means of a condition or expression. By means of a condition or expression. Now, how can we understand that a particular statement is a condition or a particular statement is an expression? How can we understand? Tell me, how can we understand? A particular statement is right. Now the point is right. No. The point is right. If at all, right, the result of the statement, if the result of the statement, right, is true or false. Okay, if the result of the statement is true or false, then that is a condition. If the result of the statement, right, is a value, then that is expression. ఇంకొంచెం ఈజీగా చెప్తా చూడండి. ఓకే, ఇఫ్ ఎట్ ఆల్ ద స్టేట్మెంట్ యూజెస్ ఓకే ఎనీ ఆఫ్ లాజికల్ ఆపరేటర్స్, equality operators, right? Logical, equality, or relational operators. Please mind this. Please mind this. If at all any statement consists of, right? Especially in if, right? In decision control statements, if the statement consists of logical, equality, and relational, then that is a condition. Otherwise, that is an expression. Okay? Otherwise, there's an expression. So rest of the any operators except these three, rest of the any three operators, then means logical means and or not, are the logical operators. Double equal to and not equal to are the equality operators. Less than, greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to are the relational operators. Okay, now try to understand either logical or equality or relational operators. If any of these three operators are there in the statement, then they are called as conditions. For rest of the things, they are operators, they are expressions. Got it? Okay, fine. Now in this case, right, this is a compound if statement. Okay, now this is a simple if statement. If a plus plus or if a greater than 10, okay, I said a is equal to a plus 5. Okay, find the difference between these two. Here in this case, if this is true, this will be executed. Means only one statement will be executed. In this case, if a greater than 10, 1, 2, 3, three statements will be executed. This is compound if. Got it? Okay, this is simple if and this is compound if. Please mind this, simple if and compound if, right? Doesn't have else part. Okay, right. Now you move on to the simple if. Compound if can have else part also. Okay, right. If else, if certain condition, then statement X. Else, otherwise, statement 2 will be executed. Okay, this is called as simple if else. This is simple if else. Got it? Simple if else. Why it is simple? Because it has got only one statement in either of the case. If this is true, upon trueness of this condition, this statement will be executed. Upon the false of the expression, right, this else part will be executed. Either this or this. Okay, now try to understand every other line, every other program, every other statement, right? Fine, absolutely, right? Every other statement, right, terminated by semicolon. But the decision control statements do not get terminated by semicolon. Okay, no decision control statement will be terminated by semicolon. Chudandi here, if there is no semicolon. Okay, else, right? So this statement has got semicolon, this statement has got semicolon, but if and else do not have any semicolons. Reason being, right? Okay, right. Okay, fine. Now, so I'm coming to the point. Next, I tell you, in case of else if ladder, okay, so else if ladder means the chain. Condition 1, statement X. Else if condition 2, statement. Else if condition, okay, statement is keep on going. This is a chain. Means when we have multiple options, when we have only two options, try to understand in a briefer sense. I tell you, if I have two options, if else, either this or that, then I'll go for if else. Okay, when I have more than two options or three options, then I'll go for, right, else if ladder. Chain, it's a chain of statements. Okay, so the chain of statements will be executed, right, in case of else if ladder. Okay, right. So in case of a nested if, right, if certain condition is true, then another condition raises. If that is also true, another condition will be evaluated. If that is also true, then another statement, another condition will be evaluated. If it goes like this, then that is called nested if statement. Okay, nested if statement. Right. Now, I give you one simple example like, okay, right? So, plenty of examples like I can have any problem. Now, what you when you're trying to address a problem, whether a given number is positive or negative, whether a problem like right, any other statement, right? Any other statement like right, if at all you want to execute in the problem itself or not, even or odd, positive or negative, prime or not. So if at all you find the statement itself, if you read the problem, then you start understanding what is there in fact. Right? In a particular statement, if the given number is even or odd, if the given number is prime or not, then obviously there is a yes or no option is there. Then simply use if else statements. Okay. So blindly, nobody mentions that if should be used, right? Switch should be used. It's not like that. It's all depends on the problem. Okay. If you understand the problem, then you start solving it. Yes or not, or not. If the problem statement itself consists of yes or no, right? Then you simply make use of it. Now, I give you one simple example like, okay, day of the given date. Suppose there is a problem, okay, day of the given date. Write a program to solve a problem, right? To write a program that tells the day of the given date. Day of the given date, right? Okay. Okay, right. Now coming to the point. So day of the given date. Now tell me how do you solve this? What is there in the program? Try to understand the problem here. Right? Here in the problem, we try to understand, right, day of the given date. Now tell me, how do you solve this? Suppose today is the first, okay, right? 1st of June, right? And the day is a Monday, isn't it? Right, it's a Monday. Now, what is the day on June 22nd? On June 22nd, tell me what is the day? How can I tell? How can I tell that? What is 29th of this month? You're almost there. You're almost there. Yes. Right. Okay, fine. Right. For that matter, right. So you try to understand the logic behind the date. So the dates on the given date, the days will be already 7 days are there, isn't it? 7 days are there. When you have 7 days only, then start implementing, right? Any given date, right? So obviously all the dates will be fall in the same 7 days only, right? So what you do is, now today is 1 means that is Monday, right? Imagine that 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there is a 7th day. You begin with 0. Okay, you begin with 0, right? So obviously this will be Sunday, this will be Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, right? You start implementing this obviously. Now for any given date, suppose date is equal to 22, right? So 22 mod 7, total 7 days are there. Okay, 22 mod 7. So obviously, right, you get value, right? So 7 3 is 21, 1. Again, that will be on Monday only. 22nd of June will be Monday only. Okay, 30th, 17th of June, suppose. 17th of June, 17 mod 7. Okay, then obviously you'll be having 14. 3 reminder. Now 3 means Wednesday. Okay, right. Now tell me how many options are there here? There are total 7 options. If there is only one option, use simple if. Okay. If there are 2 options, use if else. Right? Use if else. Right? Okay, fine. If it is more than 2 options, use else if ladder. Right? Yes, absolutely. Like what we need to do is, so when we have 7 options are there, right? You are supposed to select one option among the 7, then use the same. If the date mod 7 is equal to 0, okay, then printf it is Sunday. Else, if date mod 7 is equal to 1, then print it is Monday. Okay. Else, otherwise, if the date mod 7 is equal to 2, print Tuesday. You just keep on writing like that. So how many options are there? So see, in the problem, nobody has given you the right number of options. Okay. We are supposed to understand it. That's what so why I have taken this example means day of the given date means, so in the problem, nothing is given actually. Once we understand the problem, day of the given date, so how many days are there? There will be 7 days, there will be 7 options. So obviously it is more than 2 options. When we have more than 2 options, use else if ladder. That's it. It's a chain of if else statements. Okay, that's it. So depending on the state type of the statement, we'll go for whether I need to go for. See, it's all depends on the problem actually. Why I'm giving this problem is you are supposed to choose. Right? You should be in a position that if you observe a particular state of problem, you are supposed to understand that, right, whether simple if is to be used or not, whether compound if or if else or else if ladder or nested if, what to be used. Okay, that's what we are supposed to decide. Now I've given you right, right, right. Now when you understand this, at day of the given date, the problem has given nothing to you. Now you start, right? Absolutely, you can make use of switch also, right? Switch also, right? Else if ladder or switch, so both resemble the same. Yeah, absolutely. Case 0, case 1, case 2. Right. Perfect. Somebody is commenting that we can be use it on switch. Absolutely, right? We can do with switch. Switch is simply an alternative to else if ladder. Absolutely alternative. But most of the occasions, please remember, switch is used for menu driven programs. Okay, right? Right? Okay, absolutely. It will be easy. That depends on, see, if you understand the switch statement, then it will be easy. If you don't remind the syntax of switch, then it will be terrible. Then it will be easy to use only if else ladder itself. Most of the people prefer else if ladder only. Right? Right. Else if ladder here, this is an example for that. Okay. Else if ladder. If else, if else, if else, there will be a chain like this. Right. Menu driven means a simple, very simple. Menu driven means when you go to the hotel, you get a menu, isn't it? When you go to a hotel, you get a menu there. Okay. You select one among the items. That's what menu driven programs. Right. 1, add, 2, subtract, 3, multiplication, 4, division. Enter your choice. That's it. This is called a menu driven program. Somebody is asking about menu driven program. That's what I'm telling you. Okay, right. Okay, right. So now again, yeah. It's a good question. What about August? For that matter, actually, we are supposed to. That is actually to build the calendar. In fact, again for that now we have written this code for 1 month for the current month. Okay, right? For if at all the other month, another entire calendar, again the logic will keeps on building. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, right. So slowly we just simply complete the part actually. Then we'll slowly go on solving different problems also. I give you different problems how to address also. Don't worry. Okay. So maybe those who are already comfortable with C, maybe they feel that is a bit slow. Okay. But I'm in keeping view of the first year students, I'm going in a bit slow pace. Okay. Right. Now. Right. So far, simple if, compound if, right. Absolutely. Right. So simple if, compound if, right? If else ladder, right? A nested if, switch, all these are decision control statements, and mind this, all of them decide. Please make it a point. Decide whether a statement or a bunch of statements are to be executed or not. That too for once. Okay, right? Now, this is completely based on the logic, whether to execute a statement or not. Okay, all that, again I repeat, the decision control statements always decide whether a statement is to be executed or not. Yes or no, whether to execute a statement or not. Now the point comes, right? How many times should I execute? Okay, how many times should I execute? Right. Now we coming to that part. So most of you already, right, some way or the other, you are comfortable with the if else statements. Okay, now come to the point of right, the second one, most important one, right, looping control statements. Looping control. Okay, the looping control statements. Right. Okay, fine. Yeah. The plenty of, as the somebody is asking about a day calendar and all, right? As the problem size increases, the logic will change. As the problem size increases, the problem will change. The logic will change. The number of statements will be added. Okay, your thought process will be changed, isn't it? So it keeps on changing. I've given you a small glimpse of code for else if ladder chain, right? Where you implement for 1 month of calendar. Okay, for 1 month of calendar, particular day, right? So we just, right, it keeps, absolutely, right? Okay, fine. Coming to the point of looping control. Coming to the point, right? Looping control. Now, I want to execute, right? Printf, Bhimavaram Institute of Engineering and Technology. This is what the statement. Okay. Okay. Printf, Bhimavaram Institute of Engineering and Technology. I want to print for once. Now somebody is asked for executing this statement for 100 times. Okay, right? Now I cannot write printf. I cannot write printf statements, right? BIET, right? So 100 times. It's very difficult task, isn't it? Okay, if somebody asks for, right, they love their college, they want to ask for, right, sir, can we repeat this, right, for 1,000 times? Absolutely. But we cannot write it manually. Okay, then we take the help of looping control statements. Loop means repetition. Loop means repetition or repetitive control statements. Okay, so a statement which executes other statements for more number of times, repetitive number of executions, then we'll go for looping control statements. The looping control statement, the most popular, okay, you're all aware of it. Do while, right? For while and do while. Absolutely. For while and do while. These three are simply, right? These three are simply looping control statements. Now tell me when to use which one. Tell me when do you use for and when do you use while. I repeat, when do you make use of the first statement and when do you use while? I would like to tell, I would like to know from you. Okay. Yeah, certainly. Don't worry. We'll go technical programs. Don't worry. Right. No, don't give me the syntax first. Okay. If I give you a problem, how do you decide that here for is to be used, here while is to be used? Right. Now, I tell you, when you want to repeat a statement or a set of statements for fixed number of times, please keep it in mind. It makes a lot of difference while writing programs. Okay. If at all you want to repeat the execution of a bunch of statements, okay, for fixed number of times. Okay, fixed number of times. That means 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 100 times, n times, 1 to 10, 10 to 1. Okay, when you want to make use of fixed number of repetitions, then use for. Blindly use for. Okay, blindly use for. Right? For rest of the occasion, when you do not know the number of repetitions, You came to know that you are supposed to repeat it, but how many times you don't know. Okay, got it? When you do not know the number of repetitions, use while. Okay, right. So for and while, right? For a fixed number of repetitions, use for indefinite number of times, definite and indefinite. Please keep it in mind. Definite number of times, use for. Indefinite number of times, use while. Okay, right. I tell you, just keep on. I give you one simple example. Okay, keep counting until 100. Keep counting until 100. Okay, then use for. Keep on counting, right, until I say stop. Use while. Okay, that's the fundamental difference, right? So for will be used in case of fixed number of times. That's the reason why your syntax consists of where to begin. When you know the number of repetition 10 times, so obviously 1 to 10. That's it. Now tell me, for the syntax is initialization and where to start. Initialization, where to end means condition, and how do you reach from initial point to the ending point? How do you reach? Either increment or decrement. Either increment or decrement. Right? Now what you are supposed to do? You are supposed to repeat. What to repeat? You mentioned in the right. Now here, these are the, so for initialization, condition and increment, here you mention the number of repetitions. Okay. So whatever you mention here, that will be repeated for the given number of times. Okay, fine. For that matter, you mention for, I say a is equal to 1, a less than or equal to 100, a plus plus, right? Printf percentage d a. Now tell me what does it mean? Okay, so it prints 1 to 100, right? So it is the body of the, see again, you need not to use the body of the loop. When you have only one statement to be executed, if there is only one statement, braces doesn't make any sense. Not required. Okay, not required. When you have more than one statement, then use brace. Okay, when you have multiple statements, then use brace. Otherwise, you need not to go for. Okay, there is only one statement here, 100 times. Now tell me, I ask you one simple question. Okay, a is equal to 1, a less than or equal to 100, a plus plus. Okay, tell me what is the result of this program? Tell me what is the result of this program? No. Somebody is saying error. Somebody is saying 1 to 199. Somebody says 1. Yeah. Main stuff in the sense, see, there is nothing like here. Main is nothing like this. Just go for this. Int main, int a, for a is equal to 1, a less than or equal to 100, a plus plus. I said printf a, percentage d a. What if I mention semicolon at the end of the for loop? Now tell me what happens here. Yeah, absolutely. Here it doesn't show any error. It doesn't show any error. The loop itself. Now what, tell me, try to understand. What do you mean by semicolon? What do you mean by semicolon? Semicolon means terminate the sentence. It's a termination of the sentence, isn't it? When you terminate the sentence, right? This sentence is disconnected with this sentence. This sentence has been disconnected with the sentence. When these two are separated, this is a separate statement, this is another separate statement. Now, this statement itself, the for loop itself will be repeated for 100 times. The for loop itself will be repeated for 100 times. Once it finishes its loop, now what will be the value of a? When it stops, when it becomes 101. So as long as a value is less than or equal to 100, it's okay. When it becomes 101, okay, 101 less than or equal to 100 is fail, it comes out. Now this statement will be executed and the result will be 101. right? So the point here is, right, the point here is the for loop, at the end of the for loop, if you put semicolon, it means that you have terminated the statement. So once you terminate it, once you break it, nothing, right? Nothing will happen. No error will be displayed. It will keeps on continuing, and you get the value. The next value of A will be displayed on the screen. Okay, right. Now tell me. So here, most of the students will be facing problem here, here, here. Okay. Here you mention the starting value. So starting value is 1, ending value is 100. Now, please remember, when the starting value and the ending value is bigger than the starting value, then use plus plus. Okay. When I say 100 to 1, use minus minus. Okay. Try to see the initial and final values. Most of the students tend to fail because the loops gets into infinite loop most of the occasions. Otherwise, the loops doesn't give you the result for most of the students. The point here is simply right. Yeah. Cracking the problems, we'll say again the continuation. Right. Now, if this is the case, now coming to the point. Is that clear? I think, is that clear? Pre-increment and post-increment doesn't make any difference here. Okay, because the statement is a statement, doesn't make any difference. A plus plus or plus plus A doesn't make any difference. Okay, fine. Now, so at the end of the for loop, if you put a semicolon, it doesn't make any other. Simply it continues with the next one. Okay, now tell me, I would like to, we'll move on to, right, using for loop. We discuss patterns, logic based patterns. Okay, we'll start discussing and play patterns. Now tell me, I write a program, just tell me the result. I said P, okay, for B is equal to 1, B less than or equal to 5, B plus plus. I said printf percentage D, B. Tell me what is the result of the program? It simply displays. No, there is no semicolon at the end. Yeah, 1 to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I want to display. I want to display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 times. I want to display 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to display like this. Yeah, right. So here try to understand. If one statement is to be repeated for 5 times, we have used the for loop, isn't it? Okay, I want to repeat this entire block for 5 times. Right. Okay, so for that matter, I use another loop. I block this, right? I block this loop, okay, in another for loop called A is equal to 1, A less than or equal to 5, A plus plus. Okay, so we got another variable A comma B. Now the result will be, right, 1, 2, 3, the result will be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like this. Okay, it is horizontal. I'm getting the result in horizontal direction. Okay, but what should I get? I should be getting like a square, right? Printf \n, right? Where to mention that? Where to mention? After finishing this inner loop. Now try to understand, right? I give you some tips to solve these problems, these kind of patterns first. Okay, right? Printf \n. Now try to understand this inner. Now this is called as an inner loop. This is called as an outer loop. Inner loop and outer loop. Okay, right? Inner loop and outer loop. Now tell me what happens if I say 50. See one, instead of 5, I mentioned 50. right? In this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 will be printed for 50 times, right? Okay. Now, right. Now, this will print 50 lines, each line with 15 stars, 15 numbers, 15 numbers. Okay. So 1 to 50, 1 to 15. Now here, when I mention here 15, now tell me what is happening here. The result is somewhat like this. One, two, three, four, five, up to 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to 15. The 50 times, isn't it? Now try to understand the points here. Try to understand the points here. The inner loop for columns. Remember this. The inner loop for columns and the outer loop for lines. Okay. Outer loop is for lines. Inner loop is for columns. Right? Again, I repeat. The outer loop is for lines and the inner loop is for columns. Okay. Column. Lines are rows. Right. Lines are rows. Columns are column. Right. Now, A, comma, B. For, tell me the result of this. Right. Okay. Right. In this case, now what we have printed here, A, right? So earlier, if I use B here, the result is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for 5 times. Okay. If I use B. Okay. If I use A, right? A will be printed for 5 times. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Sorry, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay. Is that clear? Now, see this. Yeah. Right. Now, what will be the result? Here in this case. Here in this case. Right. Here what happens is, now try to understand here. Irrespective of the fact that the inner loop is always dependent on the outer loop. Please make it a point. The inner loop is always dependent on the outer loop. Right? Now, the inner loop is dependent on the outer loop in the sense, if the outer loop is maximum, the value is 1, the minimum is 1, maximum is 5. Right? So B value starts at 1, B value ends at A. A means, so at that point of time, now here you split the logic here. Okay, you split the logic here. Now try to analyze the patterns always. So the patterns always improve your logic. Okay, now A value and B values. A value, it starts at 1, ends at 5. And always, as I said, this is for lines. Right, first line, second line, third line, fourth line, fifth line. Okay, right. For each line, for the first line, B starts at 1, ends at A, means 1. 1 to 1. Okay, 1 to 1. Next time, again, A value becomes 2. 1 to 2. 1 to 3. 1 to 4. 1 to 5. That means 1 to 1 means one time. One time, the value B will be printed. One time, the value B will be printed. Okay. Next time, 2 times, the same B value will be printed 2 times. Next 3 times, the B value will be printed. Next time, the 4th time, 1, 2, 3, 4. Next time, 5 times, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So you get a triangle shape. Right. Right. You get a triangle shape. Okay. Right. Now, and please remember, for all these problems, okay. Now tell me, what is the result of this A? Here in this case, A. Yes. Yes. Very good. 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5. Now, I would like to give you some points, valid points here. Try to remember. The very first point is, I start writing somewhere else here. Whenever somebody gives you a problem, whenever somebody gives you a problem like this and patterns, okay, please remember that there should be 2 loops. First one, outer loop and inner loop. And please remember what to print. Okay, what to print. That identify cheyandi, right? So, ella identify cheyali for that matter. See the difference? Now, what is the fundamental difference between these two patterns? The fundamental difference is, in each line, same value is repeating here. In each line, different values are repeating here. Okay? Each line, same value is repeating here. In each line, different values are repeating. In case of that, okay, right, in case of that, in this case, print outer loop value. Print outer loop variable. Okay. In case of this, in every line, different values. Print inner loop variable. Inner loop variable. Okay. Always remember this. Whenever somebody gives you a pattern, please mind this. Okay. See the patterns first. Understand the pattern. Okay. In each line, same value, or each line, different value. Each line, different values. Print outer loop variable. Okay. Here, right, inner loop variable. Okay. Right. Now, and the same time. Right. Okay, fine. In that case, if at all, right? Well, what is the starting value and what is the ending value? You please check it out. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. So in case of, what is the starting value? What is the ending value? If somebody gives you like this, just 5 more minutes. Right. Now tell me, what is the difference between these two? What is the difference between these two? Now, okay, what is the difference between these two? Of course, what it is decrementing. Absolutely, it is decrementing. Very good. But the point here is, please try to understand. The earlier point is, what to print here? Inner loop variable or outer loop variable? In both the cases, inner loop variable should be printed. Inner loop variable means printf. I said printf %db. I write both the programs. Printf, both the logic. %db. Okay. Right? Inner loop variable. Now, please remember, when you print inner loop variables, okay, when we have inner loop variable, right, use the inner loop first, finish the inner loop first. Okay. While building the logic, complete the inner loop. Now the inner loop for this is for B. Now tell me where to start. Where to start? Now try to understand. For this logic, for this pattern, see the starting value is fixed. 5, 5, 5, 5, 5. Okay, the starting value is fixed. So B is equal to 5. But the ending value is changing in every line, isn't it? The ending value is changing in every line. So when the ending value is changing every time, right? So make it A. Okay. Please remember, always the inner loop is dependent on the outer loop. So obviously the inner loop variable, either the first value or the last value should be A. Either the first value or last value will be A. Certainly, every time. Okay. Then 5 is always bigger than A. Okay. Because the value of any value of A is always smaller than 5. So obviously B minus minus. Okay. Now you finish off your outer loop. Okay. You finish off your outer loop. Now outer loop, right? A. Right. Outer loop A means for A is equal to where to start. Okay. Where to start A. For A is equal to, right. In the first line itself, you are expecting 5 columns. In the first line itself, you are expecting 5 columns. So obviously, right, already B is starting at 5. Okay. When you are expecting 5 columns, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So obviously it should start at 1. A less than or equal to 5, A plus plus. There ends the matter. For this logic. Okay. For this logic, you are supposed to write like this. For this logic. Okay. Now, again, print B. Now the inner loop variable B is equal to. Now tell me where to end. Okay, where to begin. See, every time the starting value is keeping varying, but the ending value is fixed. Earlier, the starting value is fixed. Now the ending value is fixed. So ending value is fixed means B starts at A, B greater than or equal, ending value is fixed. Fixed means at 1. That's it. B again, it starts at A, ends at B, ends at 1. Always 1 is always smaller than right value. So B minus minus. Now start writing the outer loop. For A is equal to, now where to start at A value? A value B is equal to A means A should start at the first value of always 5. A greater than or equal to 1, A minus minus. That's it. Okay, 5. Absolutely. Okay. So this is how we are supposed to solve some patterns. So let me stop here itself. We resume the more different patterns tomorrow, right? Completely we focus on patterns and other topics, and we solve a small project also tomorrow. Okay, we finish it with the loops. Okay, a small application, different application will be watching from the model itself. Today, as I do not know much about the student, right, and their knowledge level, I've gone little bit slow. Okay, now we have come to the point where we can start the understanding of loops. Now we continue with the next class. Okay, in the next class from the tomorrow at 10 o'clock itself, we start with patterns and we finish it with a problem, a complete problem and a complete exercise. Tomorrow we'll finish. Okay, and with that we can conclude the loops and all. Okay, fine. Thank you for bearing with me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, sir. Students, if you got any doubt, you please forward to your coordinator so that I get from all the questions from your sir and I answer tomorrow.
Okay, sir. Sir, ending the meeting, sir.
Hello, sir.
Ending the meeting, sir. Ending the meeting.